sportsbookreview.com. I'm your host, Lee Martin, here to talk UFC. Joining me today, I have SBR's UFC expert, David Manyun, and MMA Mania's lead host, Matt Ryan. But before we get into any UFC talk, like always, go ahead, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you never miss a show. And also, just click the link in the description or head on over to sbrpicks.com/UFC if you want to check out more UFC picks from our UFC experts. Now, let's get to it. How are you guys today? I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Like always, I'm going to start off with what happened this past weekend. How about that huge upset with Agapova and Dobson? Dave, I know how you feel about that. So how about you start and let me know how your weekend went?
That was shocking. It really was. But then again, everyone deserves it. She was a young fighter, a real young fighter in Agapova. Now I can say this in hindsight, but last week I was saying, better, she's not going to lose. But it was in hindsight. It was a bad choice to even consider such a young fighter coming up against Dobson, who, when you look back, Dobson has a bad record, but she doesn't get finished like that, like just up and quick. She didn't finish once quick, and that was it. It bit everyone in the backside. I took Agapova inside the distance, so you'll never catch me playing them minus 1,000 odds. You're adding no value, which is why I didn't understand why a lot of people played Agapova in their parlays. There's no value in minus. There's none at all. You're adding that to your parlay and giving yourself an extra couple dollars. It makes no sense whatsoever. But all in all, I was happy because I was losing in terms of betting. In units profit, I was losing, and then good old Frankie Edgar come through in the end. Now, I know last week I was tossing and turning, and you know what? I never stopped tossing and turning. So what did I do? I did the sensible thing that you should always do when you're betting on MMA long term, and that's follow the number. I followed the number. The number did not make sense at all. And it paid off. It paid off in dividends because Frankie Edgar got the nod, and deservingly so. Much like we said last week, I think it was just that championship experience that pulled Edgar through in that. Not to take anything from Munhoz, it was a very close fight. But how about that? Taking on the top 10 in 3 different weight classes. Frankie Edgar's breaking records.
Yep. Now, Matt, I have someone in the comments, Gabriel Katz. He's asking, was Munhoz robbed? Do you think Pedro Munhoz was robbed? How was your weekend? Give me your thoughts on that.
My weekend is better than most who bet on that Dobson fight. We'll start a nice GoFundMe for everybody. I'm kidding. I'll just be collecting cans outside to make my money back. But when you look at the way this card broke down, it goes back to that championship mentality. When you're a judge, you're not judging just how the fight is going. You're judging all the intangibles. There's no real strict criteria to a 10-9 system. And that's one of the things that people in MMA, Big John McCarthy, Joe Rogan, a litany of people who have watched fights over the past 27, 28 years of the Ultimate Fighting Championship have been complaining about, is that the 10-9 system, which is based on boxing, based on kickboxing, there's so many things that are so many intangibles that judges will just look at and see he's the stronger fighter. You talk about Frankie Edgar dropping down to another weight class, fighting in his 3rd weight class, fighting another ranked guy, and showing off the way he did, having a strong performance. That's going to carry the judges. And I get slagged by the viewers in the chat for talking about the intangibles, talking about all the other external stuff that goes on within a fight, because as someone who's watched boxing, as someone who's seen Evander Holyfield walk out with a robbery draw against Lennox Lewis inside Madison Square Garden, the same thing happens in MMA. You're allowing human beings to judge the fight based on a system that is not perfect. So for Pedro Munhoz or for anybody else that gets robbed, quote unquote, on the scorecards, it's not as much of a matter of what they did or didn't do. It's what their opponent did in the eyes of the judges. So you could say Munhoz got robbed, but at the end of the day, Edgar proved through those weird intangibles that he deserved the victory.
All right, well said. Now let's just head on over to this weekend, August 29th. We're going to be back at the UFC Apex for UFC Fight Night, Anthony Smith versus Aleksandar Rakic. First up, we have lightweight Magomed Ankalaev versus Cutelaba via BetOnline. Ankalaev is minus 320 and Cutelaba is plus 270. Dave, I'm going to start with you. Could you give us your breakdown and pick for that fight?
Yeah. We're back again with this fight. I mean, they really want it booked, and why not? Because look what happened the first time round. Real impressive. Was the stoppage early? I don't really know. It's hard to say. I mean, is a fighter going to openly admit that he was rocked and not baiting in his opponent? I'm not really sure, but yeah, I'm not. What do you guys think? I don't know. What was Cutelaba knocked out on his feet? Was he rocked, or was he baiting him in? It's just hard to tell, but you know, the rematch is being placed with us here, so we'll get to see. And to be honest, 30 seconds into that matchup, Cutelaba, let's go with that. He was stunned, running into them combinations at Ankalaev, connected with the left instantly, and that put him in trouble. And look, he unleashed a sniper-like barrage. For me, I think Cutelaba was dazed, and even if he wasn't, the left high kick that followed, it seemed to be partially blocked. It didn't really matter because another 3 head kicks followed that, and then it was a hook and an uppercut, and that's when Kevin McDonald intervened and stopped the fight, caused the drama. The match got rebooked almost instantly towards the end of March. UFC 249 it was booked for, then the pandemic hit us. It was rebooked again for the 15th of August, and then Cutelaba actually got COVID-19. So touch wood, by the grace of God, we get to see the rematch this weekend, and if we do see it, I favor this fight just playing out pretty similar to how it did last time. These guys are going to come out, try to knock each other's head off, and I just think that Ankalaev proved he was a superior striker. In even the little sample size we had, he was just one step ahead. He was a little bit faster. He had a calm approach, and he was carefully, it did look crazy, but he was carefully selecting them choice of strikes. He wasn't just throwing anything, whereas Cutelaba's style, I'm just going to take your head off and wing bombs. But yeah, like I said, whether that fight was stopped or not, in my opinion, them strikes would have eventually caught up with Cutelaba anyway. He wasn't matching that at the same output as Ankalaev. So for me, I favor Ankalaev. I think he should be the favorite. But just like I've mentioned the other 4 times we've broke this fight down, the odds have been steep every single time. And you know, look what happened this past weekend. So if you do bet Ankalaev, maybe, you know, in addition to your parlay, your 1 or 2 unit parlay, but paying up for him, you're gonna have to pay 3 units to pick up 1, and that's just, it's not the type of positions that I put myself in. So yeah, I do favor Ankalaev, but in terms of betting, just be careful.
All right, Matt, how about you? Do you want to follow up on Dave? What is your take for Ankalaev versus Cutelaba?
So taking a look at this breakdown of this fight, great breakdown by Dave, but let's look at Cutelaba for a second. He's won 12 fights by knockout. So being in the smaller cage does him a huge service, but then you look deeper into his record. He has got 5 losses on his record. 4 of them have come since he's joined the UFC, and that makes up 50% of his time in the octagon. He's 4-4 since joining the UFC. He had a 2-fight winning streak that was stopped by Ankalaev back in February. And his biggest fight so far has been against Khalil Roundtree. So this is his second, I would say this is his biggest fight because of all the controversy surrounding it. But here's the thing about Cutelaba. He's never lost 2 fights in a row. He's never lost back-to-back fights. So that could play into, he's a streaky fighter. He's not someone who will go on long losing streaks. But you take a look at the last fight. You look at the fact that Magomed has won 8 of his fights by knockout. The only time he's been submitted has been against Paul Craig. And 3 of his 5 wins in the UFC have come by way of knockout. You talk about the sniper-like proficiency of a Ankalaev. You say Cutelaba's chin. If he's going to go to the same strategy he did in the first fight, and the same strategy he's taken into every single one of his previous 8 UFC fights, the odds are not in his favor. That 38-second, you could argue the stoppage, but Ankalaev probably would have got him again. Yeah, I saw Gabriel Katz saying Cutelaba was acting in the chat. You don't act if you're that good of an actor. We'll get you an Academy Award. We'll try to get you the Emmy FYC for this year. But when it comes to this fight, I'm going Ankalaev. It'll be within the distance. He's won 6 of his fights by decision, but I feel like he'll have his 9th knockout by the end of Saturday night.
All right. Well, if you guys want to get in on that fight, again, Magomed Ankalaev is -320 and Cutelaba is +270. On to the next fight. We have featherweight Ricardo Lamas versus Bill Algeo. Via Bet Online, Lamas is -260 and Algeo is +220. Matt, I'm going to continue with you if you can give us your breakdown and pick for that fight.
Well, Lamas was supposed to face Ryan Hall heading into this fight. So changing the opponent, going up against a more veteran opponent in Algeo, whose UFC debut, Lamas, the veteran here, going up against a debuting Algeo. I'm looking at my notes, going up and down, looking like a jackass. His UFC debut for Algeo was a loss on the Contender Series to Brandon Loughnane back in 2019. You look at Lamas, he's 1-3 of his last 4, 2 of which were KO losses, so he's had to be stopped twice in 3 of his last 4 fights. His last fight was against Calvin Kattar back at UFC 238, and that was a loss. Not looking good for Lamas, even though he's an 11-year veteran of the WEC/UFC. He's been a part of the Zuffa family for over a decade. And for Algeo, it's a last-minute opponent. You got a veteran going in there. I would go at Lamas, but I'm expecting this one to go to a decision. I would not look at putting anything on this fight. This is a stay-away fight for me just because of all those variables of you got a debuting guy, you've got a vet, replacement opponent. Dave could probably break it down a little bit better for you guys, but for this one, to me, it's Lamas within the distance. I mean, by a decision. I'm very tired.
You're all good. All right, Dave, how about you? Do you agree with Matt, or what's your take on this fight?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was incredibly bummed at the news of Ryan Hall not making this fight. Real shame. Love that guy. Totally under the radar. And now we've got a guy in Bill Algeo. To be honest, this fight wasn't announced that long ago, and I haven't done the greatest amount of research on it. But the fights that I did see from Bill Algeo really bothered me. He's a BJJ black belt, okay? Now, it says that he's a black belt in Muay Thai as well. Okay, fine. Former Cage Fury champion. He's a former featherweight champion for ROC as well, which is probably the reason why they feel he can step in and take on someone like Ricardo Lamas, maybe. Because he's fought Shane Burgos, he's fought Jared Gordon, and he appeared on Dana White Contender Series. Now, with that said, he did lose all of those fights, so I worry for him against the high level experience of Lamas. Now, Lamas is also a BJJ black belt, but this guy's also got the NCAA Division III wrestling in his back pocket as well. So naturally, his greatest offense is obviously through the ground game. When we look at the experience of these two, it's just worlds apart. Lamas has fought Max Holloway, Chad Mendez, Oliveira, Emmett, Bektic, Jose Aldo. So when you compare the record between him and Algeo, you can't compare it. It's not comparable. Algeo's coming off a win now. He lost on Dana White Contender Series, and then he goes back to the regionals and he picks up another win against a guy with a record of 9-7. Now, this was a couple of weeks ago, and he should have won this fight against a guy with a 9-7 record. But the more that you study this kid's recent performances, it really doesn't make sense as to why the UFC would sign him. And they're not. He's just filling in last minute replacement. That's all this kid is right now, in my opinion. I'm watching him in this fight, his previous fight. Sorry, the fight he lost on Dana White Contender Series, and he's fighting with his hands up, and he's looking like a boxer. And then in his most recent fight, he comes out with a wide, like, karate style stance, no Muay Thai stance inside, and he just doesn't threaten anything in the stand up whatsoever. Now, I didn't get to see the knockouts on his record. I didn't see those fights, but he does have 2 knockouts. But I'm not sure how he's even managed to knock someone out, in all honesty, because he doesn't seem aggressive whatsoever. And when you watch the last fight that he won, he just took it straight to the ground. He didn't want nothing to do with the stand-up whatsoever. And it's odd to see a guy who's, apparently a black belt in Muay Thai come out and give some wide karate stance with his hands completely down, looking like Conor McGregor, when in his previous fight, he comes out with like a boxing stance, sometimes Muay Thai stance with his guard up real high and that, but it was real confusing for me. So when I'm trying to break him down and see if he's got a path to victory against Lamas, I mean, I don't really see it. I'd think that he'd want to, you know, maybe you look at his career, a lot of his wins come by submission, so the black belts paid off for him early on in his career, but as that level of competition has raised, he hasn't been getting the submissions. Ricardo Lamas is a black belt himself. To be honest, I can't believe I'm saying it because Lamas has been knocked out a lot. I just can't see this kid being one of them guys that knocks Lamas out or even gets close to knocking him out. I'm actually starting to see value in this Juice line because Algeo just doesn't impress me whatsoever. He looks very stiff in his striking. That's another thing. When you look at a Muay Thai striker, they're very fluent and just relaxed in their striking. This kid, he just seems stiff. I'll quote Conor McGregor. He looks stuck in the mud. He really does. So for me, it's Ricardo Lamas. Am I going to pay that price straight up? I don't know, because look, we do have to take into consideration that he is coming off a few sketchy knockouts. But then again, you can argue the fact that these knockouts are against some of the UFC's heaviest hitters, some of the best in the division. So conclusion, yeah, it's Ricardo Lamas's fight to lose. And the only way I can see Algeo picking anything up here would be a freak, some sort of freak KO, and maybe Lamas's chin is fully shot and is hit it the past couple of fights. I don't know, but yeah, it's Ricardo Lamas for me. Might be a parlay piece with the Juice. I may even pay up heading towards fight night. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, Ricardo Lamas all day long, and it's probably my favorite pick on this main card, to be honest.
All right. Well, there you have it. If you want to get in on that fight, again, Lamas is minus 260 and Algeo is plus 220. Now on to the next fight. We have women's flyweight, Yeon Kim versus Alexa Grasso. Grasso is minus 300 and Kim is plus 250. Dave, I'm going to continue with you. If you can give us your breakdown and pick for that fight.
Yes. So what are the odds now, did you say, on Grasso? What do we have
Grasso,
on her?
She's minus 300.
Yeah,
and Kim is plus 250.
Yeah, that's been juiced. The public know where to go. Now, it's very rare that you'd probably see a fighter who's coming in off the back of a knockout fighting somebody who's coming in off the back of a loss where the loser is heavily favored. I think that's because Alexa Grasso beats Kim in all areas. She was a ranked strawweight, not anymore. I guess she's moving up a weight class, and now she's going to take on probably one of the easiest competition in that division in Yeon Kim. Because how does Grasso lose this fight? She loses this fight if she's up against a grappler, somebody like a Sparza, where in her previous fight where we backed Sparza and got that dog money. The wrestling grind is just a kryptonite of Grasso, and luckily for her, Kim won't be attempting no single or double leg takedowns. I don't want to take away from Kim. She's decorated. She had great records in kickboxing and on the amateur scene. She looked like she was going to be a star in the UFC, and she's turned up and she just hasn't done much, especially when her wins. I think 3 wins in the UFC. I think 2 of those were a close split decision, real close split decisions where it could have gone either way. But yeah, I don't want to discredit her. Purple belt BJJ, black belt in Wushu and Hapkido. And to be honest, they're nothing more than fancy words unless they translate into the octagon. And I haven't saw Kim. For me, she hasn't given me any type of confidence to put my money behind her. Now, the size discrepancy has people questioning Alexa Grasso in this. I understand she's moving up a weight. Kim's a big girl. But for a fight where it stylistically suits Grasso, I just don't think she's going to lose this one. Kim doesn't utilize that reach. In fact, it's funny. Kim, in fact, she likes to strike on the inside, and Grasso is great at striking at distance. She's going to give up the reach advantage, but I think I'll just anticipate a leg kicking game to play out from Grasso. She trains with Irene Aldana, who's currently training for Holly Holm, where the winner of that fight has got a potential title shot in the works. So And if you look at Irene Aldana and Grasso, they're very similar in styles as well. You can tell that they are training partners. I can see the leg kicks coming through for Grasso here if she can't reach Kim. I think she will, because Kim, like I said, she likes to come in and strike on the inside. Kim doesn't utilize that reach, and she really should. She should use like a lot more, especially with some teep kicks or some front kicks. But yeah, this is Grasso's fight for me. I do not like this line though. And look, we saw what happened last week. We know what it is with women's MMA. It's still a young sport. The smallest thing can be the decider in these fights. And a small thing like reach can be the reason why a fighter wins sometimes. But with that said, I just think Grasso is going to keep her range, win the striking battle, more than likely not take a unanimous decision. I'll go over unanimous. I don't think Kim's going to have much for Grasso this weekend at all.
All right. How about you, Matt? Do you agree with Dave, or do you have a different take on this fight?
So it is Grasso's fight to lose if we look at the way this fight breaks down, even though, as Dave said, Kim's coming off a win and Grasso's coming off a loss, but that was a unanimous decision loss. And when you look at both of these fighters since joining the UFC have gotten their first career loss. They walked into the UFC undefeated. Kim, since joining the UFC, is 3-2. All of Grasso's losses have come inside the UFC. She's 3-3 inside the octagon. So both of these fighters are still young in their UFC careers, but have not lived up to the potential or the hype that some of them have seen or have talked about since joining the UFC. They've both faced heady competition. Grasso's last loss was against Carla Esparza, who's no one to look past. Kim, her biggest fight to date was a loss to Antonina Shevchenko. And anytime you see the last name Shevchenko against you in a bout agreement, you clench up a little bit on the inside. For me, this fight comes down to the fact that Kim has not been finished. Kim has not been stopped in her career. All of her losses have come by way of decision. So she's going to stick around for all 3 rounds. I think this is Grasso's fight to lose. She'll get the win by way of decision, but it wouldn't surprise me if Kim finds a way to just pop up and get the quick win. But the longer this fight goes, the better it goes for Grasso, because we've seen Kim falter on the scorecards.
Yep. Okay. If you guys want to get on that fight again, Grasso is -300 and Kim is +250. Now let's head on over to the next fight with welterweight Robbie Lawler versus the Haitian sensation Neil Magny. The odds on this fight, Magny is -245 and Lawler is +210. Matt, I'm going to continue with you if you can give us your breakdown and pick for that fight.
+210 is delicious. I'll say that right now. +210 sounds delicious right now for a guy in Robbie Lawler who I think Dave will agree with me is past his prime. I think that Rory McDonald fight, that war he went through, and Rory McDonald tried to keep that act going in Bellator, and well, we've seen his career kind of completely crumple beneath him. Not saying that going to the PFL is a downgrade for someone like Rory McDonald, but you see the diminishing returns in his performances after that, and that's the same thing with Robbie Lawler. He's knocked out 20 guys, so you can't look past the fact that Robbie Lawler, if not already, is a UFC Hall of Famer. That day is coming, that jacket is coming to him, but he's lost 3 in a row. He lost to Rafael Dos Anjos. He lost a controversial submission to Ben Askren in Askren's UFC debut. And Colby Covington, I was at that fight. It was just a year ago down the street in Newark at the Prudential Center. And Colby Covington took him for a walk in that fight. And I'm not a big fan of Colby Covington, but you can say that Colby Covington dominated him that day and basically gave him the opportunity to get that title shot where Kamaru Usman completely washed him, thank God. But he's 1-4 in his last 5, including losing to Tyron Woodley. That McDonald fight created a whole list of diminishing returns. I think if Robbie Lawler doesn't get the win here tonight, that's the end of him in the UFC. He's a certified legend. But when we look at Magny, he's on a 2-fight win streak over Li Jingliang and Anthony Rocco Martin, both of them by unanimous decision. So I'm expecting this fight to go to the decision because Lawler, he's a grinder. He's someone who can survive. And Magny, he's only finished 7 of his 23 victories. He's gotten 13 by decision, 3 by submission, but he has been knocked out twice, and he's susceptible to submissions. Over half of his losses have come by way of decision. So the only way I really see this fight ending with a Lawler victory is if he's able to just rock Magny's jaw, or catch him in the back with a submission. But I've got Magny by a very, very slim decision.
All right. How about you, Dave? Do you agree with Matt? I'm going to read you the odds again real quick. We have Magny at -245 and Lawler at +210. Dave?
Oh, we lost Dave.
Oh, I think you're muted, Dave, or something.
Yeah,
There
sorry.
you go.
The kittens, I've got 4 kittens below me. They're making a lot of noise, so I decided to mute it. And I don't want to hear you. I don't want you guys to hear me squeal when they're hacking at my own cage. But yeah, back to the violence. Yeah, Robbie Lawler, ruthless. I mean, we love Robbie Lawler because the guy, I believe it was 3 years back-to-back Fight of the Year award. I think, quote me if I'm wrong, but boy, when we go back and we watch the fight tape on Robbie Lawler, it's just the best ever. Going into detail, I might get the video suspended on YouTube, so I'm not going to go into detail what happens in a Robbie Lawler fight. But yeah, his nickname Ruthless, he surely does live up to it. But as mentioned, we've just watched since the Rory McDonald escapade, we have watched a decline. Now, although we have saw him decline, we can argue that he's fighting, the best there has to offer. Coming off the back of 2 losses, a loss to RDA and a loss to Ben Askren, he then goes on to fight a potential title challenger in Colby Covington. Now, he does get dominated, doesn't get a peak in that fight, but he doesn't get finished, and that's what we see with Robbie Lawler. No matter what you put in front of him, it's very hard to finish him. And we can talk about the bulldog choke from Ben Askren, which personally I don't think that was a person that was out. I think that was a person that was resting his arm at the time. When you're in a choke like that, you will be advised, his corner most likely advised him to relax at the time. If you're not in danger, you're not being choked, and you feel like you're not going to be, you don't feel the need to tap out, then you're going to have to relax your body in those positions to maintain your energy. And I think that's what happened. I think it was just a confusion. So in my eyes, Robbie Lawler isn't on the back of 3 losses. He's on the back of 2 losses, RDA and Colby Covington. But now he's aged 38. He's taken 1 fight per year, if that. We didn't see him in 2018 whatsoever. Then obviously he made that return, gave up the loss to Ben Askren, dominated by Colby, and now he's fighting a guy who I think they joined. In fact, I think they joined the UFC at the same time. Neil Magny come through the Ultimate Fighter, and although they have the similar amount of experience, if you put a comparison of these 2 men and the damage that they've taken, Robbie Lawler's certainly going to win, even though Magny has been knocked out twice. The 5-round wars that Robbie Lawler has been through is just ridiculous. You go back to 2014, it all started with Matt Brown, and then from then it was Matt Brown 5 rounds, Johnny Hendricks 5 rounds, Rory McDonald 5 rounds, Carlos Condit 5 rounds, and then at the end of that you get knocked out by Tyrone Woodley in round 1 to lose your title. So it was a real rough period, from being at the top of everything, the top of the game, going straight down to that losers column, and it's just been a losing streak ever since for our boy Robbie Lawler. So this fight we have at hand, it's pretty simple for me. He's got that left hand. He's got that southpaw stance, that knockout power. He's gonna have to rush Neil Magny and get him out of there, because if this fight goes 3 rounds, he is going to get outpointed by Neil Magny. It's that simple. We don't have to go real technical with this, because to be honest with you, and not even in a negative light, Robbie Lawler's a one-dimensional fighter. He loads up his punch, he loads up the power, he's looking to get the knockout, he's looking to get you out of there, and that's just been his style, and he's never really changed whatsoever. So yeah, it's all Neil Magny for me, although that sounds funny, but at this price, look, the public have juiced it. It opened at minus 140. Now that sounds perfect to me. That's great for me. I'll take a minus 140 on Neil Magny. But now we're looking at minus 250. Since the 12th of August to the 26th of August, the public have juiced that from minus 140 to minus 251. So if you're playing that 251 price now, you're playing a price that is the biggest loss of value. It's a huge loss of value, over 100 points, 110. That's not good. Long-term bettors, that's going to sting you in the back. Now, Neil Magny will probably win. And you can argue with me next week about how soon Neil Magny will, but that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that Robbie Lawler can knock Neil Magny out. And if these guys fight 10 times, Robbie Lawler can pick up a knockout out of a couple of them fights, I'm telling you. And that's when the prices are plus 216 I can see at some books for Robbie Lawler, which is real tempting when he has that power to put you out. And to be honest, with the length and reach of Magny, I could see Robbie Lawler rip into the body and getting a stoppage. But given Magny's recent performances and the heavy hitters that he's faced and avoided the knockout against, I mean, Li Jingliang, you know, he's got bombs and he wasn't able to put Magny out. I think Magny's just, he's got that experience, which is very similar to Lawler. He's fought the best of the best, but it's just at a different period of his career. And losing by knockout to Santiago Ponzinibbio and Lorenz Larkin is nothing to be embarrassed about. I can tell you that for sure, because the majority of people get knocked out by Lorenz Larkin and Ponzinibbio. But yeah, it's Neil Magny or pass for me, I think. But in terms of betting, I will not bash anybody for taking a pop at Robbie Lawler, especially at these new odds that the public have provided for us.
All right. Well, there you have it. For Magny, we have minus 245, and Lawler, we have plus 210 at Bet Online. So get it on that. Now we head on over to the main event. We're going to have a light heavyweight Anthony Smith versus Aleksandar Rakic. Rakic is minus 270 and Smith is plus 230. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Do you think Anthony Smith is going to get his teeth knocked out for this fight? Or do you think he's good to go?
See, I don't know Anthony Smith's mindset heading into this fight. The last time we saw him, he was stopped by the official. He refused to have his corner stop the fight for him. There's a whole lot that goes into the mental game when it comes to mixed martial arts. And Anthony Smith, a brilliant analyst, a guy whose opinion on fighting I would take over my own. I wouldn't take it over Dave's, but I would take it over my own because he's been punched in the face before. I have not been punched in the face in 10 years. That's why I have a beard. Text me. But when you look at the loss to Glover Teixeira, I think that plays heavily into Smith's state of mind. We've seen him. He's very reactionary on social media. He's someone whose psyche can be afflicted, can be damaged. And when we look at Rakic's record, he's on a 12-fight winning streak before he lost to Volkan Ozdemir. Even though Smith has a win over Ozdemir, you look at his last couple of fights, the loss to Teixeira, the loss to John Jones, but he did get a win over Alexander Gustafsson. So you see these flashes of brilliance from Smith, who has been around for a long time. You look, and that's got to play into it too. We were talking about the Robbie Lawler fight before. We're talking about Robbie Lawler basically having more miles on him than a Neil Magny, who are similar ages. Rakic is younger. He's only fought 14 pro fights. He's knocked out 9 of his opponents. This is a trap fight for Smith, who's looking to get back into title contention. That title is wide open right now. He's looking to fight whoever wins that vacant title fight coming up towards the end of the year, most likely. I see this with Rakic getting the stoppage, not early, but before the championship or main event rounds 4 or 5. I could see this ending before the 3rd.
All right. How about you, Dave? I'm going to read you those odds again. We have Rakic at minus 270 and Smith at plus 230. Give me your take on that fight and also about those odds.
Yeah, do you know, it's quite rare that we see a main event where both the competitors are coming off the back of a loss. But, you know, with the exit of John Jones from the light heavyweight division, there are a few spaces available now, and one of them being for Anthony Smith, who got dominated by John Jones in a 5-round decision loss. He can now set his sights on gold potentially. Will his mental be there to be able to do that? I'm not sure after losing to an aging fighter in Glover. Not to take that away from Glover because he is incredible, but when you're age 32 and you're losing to a guy in his 40s, that's got to knock your confidence. I do not care what you say, especially in the fashion that it happened. And nobody really predicted that outcome. And he's fighting a guy in Aleksandar Rakic who has been destroying guys who don't get destroyed in the fashion that they have. Rakic, you look at his record and you look at Smith's record and you go, God damn, like worlds apart. But you need to know that Rakic surpassed 40 fights during his kickboxing years. So it's easy to sit here and discredit that, low looking MMA experience of a 12-2 record. But an 8-year undefeated streak only came to an end against a dodgy decision against Volkan Oezdemir, where I think Rakic should still be undefeated in the UFC, in my opinion. It was a very close split decision. This kid is no slouch. 28 years old. We can't really call him a prospect, but because it is the heavier divisions and it is the light heavyweight division, there's a lot more we can see from Rakic, even through a loss for this kid. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. How can he win this fight? I think it's pretty simple for Rakic. Keep it standing and outstrike his opponent. That sounds easy. Anthony Smith, great ground game, high-level jiu-jitsu game, but that's only good for him when he's in control. As we saw, Glover quite effortlessly just keep him on the floor. So the aggressive striking at range for Rakic, which we see in all of his fights, the low kick, the switch in a stance, and the best tool that Rakic has are his feints. His feints disguising the strikes that are coming. The high kick, knockout reel. Jesus, it's hard not to just keep hitting replay. Rakic is an impressive dude, and I think that Anthony Smith might just get knocked out in this one. It's tough. The athleticism across 5 rounds as well. 5 rounds. I'm not sure that Anthony Smith is going to be able to survive 25 minutes with them bombs coming out. And it's not like he's a winger either. He's very technical. Rakic doesn't just throw anything, and everything is very methodical in what he's doing. Now, the level of competition, far more superior on behalf of Smith. But with such a long period of his time spent in the middleweight division, the sample size that we are looking at for Smith's light heavyweight fights is only, I think, 5 contests. Fortunately, these were against, some of the best in the world. And to be fair to Smith, he has only looked a bit questionable on them 2 occasions during his UFC tenure. Rakic's scrambling ability is probably not going to have to come into play, but we've seen that with his large frame and reach. He's so athletic that even if you want to try and get him down and keep him there for a long period of time, it's going to be hard. And in the clinch, both guys are dangerous in the clinch. Smith has got some serious elbows. He loves to pressure. Smith, I feel, comes out on top more time when he is pressuring the fight, which I do not think he's going to be able to do against Rakic. And whilst he is on his back foot, I feel like Rakic is going to, pretty similar to his other knockout wins, is disguise them strikes. You're not going to see it coming. You're not going to see that head kick coming. You're going to think the left jab's coming. Instead, it's going to be a left high kick, and you're going to be looking up at the stars. With 5 rounds to disengage the grappling and pick his shots, I just think the power strikes of Rakic are going to prevail, and it's all Aleksandar Rakic. But yet again, much like the entirety of this card, these odds are getting beaten up left, right, and center. Rakic is getting close to minus 300 now, which is a nearly 100-point raise since his opener of minus 235. It's tough to back, but I really do think that this kid is something special. I don't want to discredit Anthony Smith, but the last time Anthony Smith, I think, had a successful, impressive fight was against a crackhead that broke into his house.
And he barely got the win in that one.
Yeah, and he barely survived that one, so that's right. Look, I'm Rakic. I'm a big Rakic fan. The loss to Özdemir, I don't think was a credible win for Özdemir at all. I think, if anything, that fight should have been a draw. Rakic to take it this weekend. In terms of betting, it's a tough one. I'm still back and forth. I will tell you though, I don't think it's going the distance. I think it will end before 15 minutes. But potentially that could reach the fourth. But either way, I don't think it's going to the judges' scorecards. Rakic will find his shot at one point, I believe, and put Anthony Smith's lights out.
All right, well, there you guys have it. So again, via Bet Online, Rakic is -270 and Smith is +230. Now, before we head out, I saw a comment in the chat regarding a prelim fight. It said, did you guys note that Mallory Martin was a +240 dog and the odds have flipped? Via Bet Online, Mallory Martin is -310 and Hannah Cyphers is +260. Do you guys have anything to say about that? Because I find that to be interesting.
I mean, an odds move like that is that's really just a mistake on the bookmakers' behalf. Really, they've totally discredited Mallory in this position, and they've made a big mistake because look, there's a lot of sharp MMA cappers out there who know what's good, and they were able to pick up some real good dog money on Mallory against a girl in Hannah Cyphers. What is Hannah Cyphers doing? Can anyone tell me? She keeps taking fights. She keeps losing. She wants to get paid. That's what's going on. She wants to get paid. To be fair, if she looked in a betting world, let's forget our MMA, fandom and how much we love it and all that good stuff. We're strictly talking about betting and gambling advice here. The only play right now is Hannah Cyphers. She opened at -170. She is now +250. Even the worst mathematicians know that it just makes sense to take that dog money because it's completely flip reversed. And now what? Sorry, if you're gonna go and bet Mallory Martin at -320 when you could have got her at +145, you should probably stop gambling. Like, even in terms of a parlay edition or anything like that, the value has left. It's gone. It's sailed. It's flew away so bad. Just stop it. But it's a stay away fight for me, in all honesty. When you see a line flip like that, I'll just be happy to watch it, and I'll be probably rooting for Hannah Cyphers, to be fair.
As that worst mathematician, I will agree. It's not the line shifting extreme like that. Doesn't matter if it's football, soccer, MMA, boxing, or tiddlywinks. If the line makes a drastic move like that the week of the fight, it's either the cappers not taking a certain fighter seriously like they did with Mallory Martin, or they know something about Hannah Cyphers that nobody else knows, because there may be an injury, there may be a training problem, there may be something. She may not even make weight. Like it goes back to the intangibles. I know I'm the boring guy who looks at all the other stuff that's not just punch kick violence. But when you look at that, when you see the line shift, there's two options. Either what Dave said, the cappers got things wrong and they needed to readjust the line because they were getting pounded, or something weird is happening in that camp that only a few people know about, and that line is starting to creep because of it.
All right. Well, there you guys have it. Now, that is a wrap on UFC Fight Night. Anthony Smith versus Aleksandar Rakic. If you are not following the guys on Twitter, I highly recommend following them. You can follow Dave at @DManyun_, and you can follow Matt at MRyan Consulting. And also, don't forget to give SBR a follow on Twitter and Instagram at SBR Sports Picks. And also, if you want to have more UFC picks or analyst breakdowns from SBR's UFC experts, then head on over to sbrpicks.com/UFC or just click the link in the description. Well, there we have it. Thank you guys so much for your time, like always. Best of luck to everyone this Saturday, and we'll see you next time.
Baba Booey.